Rain-X wipers are the #1 wiper blades in America. That means all kinds of drivers choose Rain-X. Big drivers in small cars choose Rain-X. Small drivers in big cars choose Rain-X. Drivers with long hair and short commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with short hair and long commutes choose Rain-X. Drivers with pets on board, babies on board, and bored babies on board choose Rain-X. Basically, drivers who love a clear view of the road all choose Rain-X wipers, the #1 wiper blades in America.
Home to The Rachel Maddow Show, Morning Joe, The Briefing with Jen Psaki, and more voices you know and trust. MS Now is your source for news, opinion, and the world. Our name is new, but you'll find the same commitment to justice, progress, and the truth that you've relied on for decades. We'll continue to cover the day's news, ask the tough questions, and explain how it impacts you. MS Now. Same mission, new name. Learn more at ms.now.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Welcome back to YAOK. I am Alyssa.
And I'm Eric.
Yeah, you are. Thank you for joining us again today. Today, we interviewed Randy Ribay. We had a really deep combo today. It got a little very tied into current day. And I love conversations like that. I think it just, grounds art in reality in such a really cool way. So I loved our conversation.
Especially when it's a historical novel, too. I think that's one of the interesting things.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about Everything We Never Had, which has multiple POVs. And then we also talked about Patron Saints of Nothing. But Randy also has written books in the Avatar universe. So there's a lot that he has to offer. And so we got to talk about a bunch of it. I think this is a longer one. So should we just jump into it?
Yeah.
Let's jump on in.
For 5 long years, our lives like magnetic fields. You are my universe. You are my universe. And I'm just a planet.
So hi, Randy. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Great. So good to have you on. We're excited to talk with you. So I actually... I think your most recent book was Everything We Never Had, which came out last summer, right?
Yep, last August.
I know the Patron Saints of Nothing is one that I feel like I have seen everywhere. Like that cover, I think is just so distinctive. The art's great. So I think it just stands out because it's like that bright red too. Mm-hmm. Can we start talking about that first? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure.
So let's talk about Patron Saints of Nothing. Can you tell us, just kind of give us like a little brief description of what it's about and what your kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, Alyssa? The inspiration.
I was like, I don't know.
So full disclosure.
Alyssa, I don't know.
Alyssa and I have, we recorded an episode earlier today, and the times that we do 2 in one day, they can get a little weird. So I am worried about that, but
we've warmed up.
Try and keep it as normal as possible.
Yeah. I welcome it. So Patron Saints of Nothing is a YA contemporary fiction book about a Filipino-American teenager whose cousin in the Philippines is killed as a result of the drug war in the Philippines. And he doesn't believe his cousin was guilty. But his family won't really talk about it. So he actually ends up going to the Philippines to find out exactly for himself kind of what actually happened to his cousin. The book came out in 2019. And so, just this little background. If you don't know, in 2016, the Philippines elected Rodrigo Duterte as president. And he was very much your typical strongman, law and order kind of candidate. And one of the things that he was running on was this idea that he would he would eliminate violent crime and illegal drug use in the entire country in 3 to 6 months if he were elected, right?
Wow.
And one of the ways he was going to do it was by being tough on crime, right? He was saying in terms of drugs, if somebody is addicted or if somebody is selling drugs, they need to turn themselves into the police. If they don't, they'll be identified. The police will go to their home, arrest them, force them into treatment. And if they fight back, the police can kill them and the police will have immunity.
Whoa.
He'll protect the police. So this is kind of what he ran on, and he was elected. And the drug war was pretty terrible. I mean, in the day he was inaugurated, I think it was somewhere between 30 and 40 people were killed as kind of the first round of action. And then over the course of his presidency, there's different estimates. Like the official police number is that they killed around 4,000 to 5,000 people in these operations. But human rights groups say that it's upwards of 30,000 people were killed as a result of this.
Wow.
And presidency in the Philippines is 6 years long. And so his term has expired. There's a new president who's the son of former dictator Ferdinand Marcos. And the drug war is continuing under him, but a little bit quieter and a little bit more low down. But anyways, all that to say, back in 2016, I'm Filipino-American. I was born in the Philippines, raised in the United States. I have family there, friends there. And so I've always kind of kept an eye on the news in the Philippines. And, as the campaigning was going on and he was talking about this plan, I was like, first of all, this is ridiculous. You're not going to get rid of drug usage and crime in 3 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to do it this way, right? And so, I was kind of pretty vocal about saying that this was unconstitutional, first of all, because Filipinos have the right to due process, much like in our Constitution. It also seemed like a gross violation of human rights, right? To kind of just tell the police, you can go kill whoever you want and we'll protect you. And so, I was thinking about that and I would talk about it. And something that I would hear from different Filipinos in the Philippines was that, Filipino Americans don't have a right to talk about what's happening in the Philippines, right? We don't live there. We don't know what the Philippines needs. And the Philippines needs someone tough on crime. They need somebody to get in there and make people disciplined. And so, so that's a question that I sat with for a little while, was like, well, what right do I have to talk about Philippine politics? And for me, I often write about a question. A question is my way into a story, right? It's usually a question that I'm thinking about for a while that I don't know the answer to. And for me, writing the story is a way to work through it, right? I guess it's kind of like, you imagine somebody with action figures, like role playing some kind of scenario. Like that's essentially what I do. And so my question going into this was, what right do I have as a Filipino-American to talk about Philippine politics? And so, I kind of came up with a story idea where I have a teenage Filipino-American kid who's growing up in that moment or around that moment in time. The book came out in 2019, and I decided to set it around 2019 as well. And I was thinking, well, if I were a Filipino-American teenager while this drug war is happening, what would it take for me to actually pay attention, right? Because it's hard, especially as a teenager, it's hard to get out of that bubble of what's happening in my world, let alone adults getting out of their bubble. And so I was like, all right, well, he has a family member, say, in the Philippines who was killed as a result of this. That would kind of draw him into it and kind of, bring him into the idea of, well, what actually happened to him, what's going on in the Philippines, what has been going on in the Philippines. And I think inherently as part of that, he also is thinking a lot about his own identity as a Filipino-American, particularly a biracial Filipino-American, and what does that mean to be part of both of these cultures, who have been born in one place, raised in another place. So it's a little bit of a coming of age, a little bit of a murder mystery, a little bit of, contemporary, slipping in those contemporary politics as well. Kind of a combination of it, as he's trying to figure out what actually happened to his cousin, he's also wrangling with this question of who he is and what is his relationship to his family, to the country of his birth.
That's a beautiful and layered story. How did writing that story change your perspective of your relationship to the Philippines? Yeah,
I mean, I think like I said, I kind of started out that question of, well, what right do I have to talk about all of this? And I didn't know the answer. I'm not the kind of writer, even though I write for kids, I'm not the kind of writer that's like, what do I want to tell kids?
Yeah.
And then write a story that says that, right? I'm like, I'm writing the story to figure things out for myself. And so going into that question, I'd say by the time I spent a couple years working on the book, doing research, visiting the Philippines, talking to different people, reading as much as I could. The way I came out of it was we all have the responsibility to speak out in moments of injustice, especially if we're connected to those moments. But kind of at a broader sense too, Elie Wiesel, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, like a lot of people talk about this, right? That we need to speak out, that there are no borders when there's injustice kind of idea. Mm-hmm. The second thing I think I took away from it was the idea that I probably, like a lot of Americans, maybe I'll blame it on the way that we're often taught history. We have this idea that like we need to fix things, right? That we're going to be the one. We're going to go in, and I kind of give this to Jay a little bit in the story. Jay, the main character, it's like we're going to go in and we're going to solve this. We're going to fix this, right? Because I think the way we're taught history is very much this. We have these historical icons, right? Like Martin Luther King Jr. fixed racism, right?
Yeah,
like ended slavery, right?
Or the world's policemen.
Yeah,
crazy.
We're going to go and fix everything and do everything, and that also there's always this like hero that saves the day kind of idea. And so as I was working on that, I kind of realized I had that too for wherever that came from, and so kind of working through that a little bit. And then I think the other part of it was just kind of connected to that. It was just learning how many people, how many organizations are already opposing this, right, within the Philippines and outside of the Philippines. And that, my role as American isn't necessarily to go and solve everything, right, or propose the solutions, but to listen to people, to lift up those who are already doing the work, who have been doing the work for decades, even before this administration, and kind of highlight what they're doing, and try to do that. Try to do that a bit in the story. There's a section in the back of the book. If you get like if you're not listening to the audio, I don't know, it might be in the audiobook. I don't know. But the book has like organizations kind of listed in the back that you could connect with if you want to become involved. So just kind of be like realizing that I do have a position to speak about what's happening. I have privilege and safety being an American citizen to talk about what is happening in the Philippines in a way that maybe not all Filipinos have that safety to do, right? And that I can use that to lift up the work that others are doing and highlight that and help them in whatever way we can, rather than having to go in there and be like, I'm going to start this organization, or I'm going to tell everyone how to fix this. Yeah,
like you're navigating what activism means to you as a person who's not physically there, and you're, like you said, it has like the privilege and benefit of safety from where you're standing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Has just everything happening in America over the past few weeks brought all of this back too? Because it's kind of similar, where I know the Trump administration isn't targeting specifically people like drug addicts right now, drug users and drug addicts at the moment, but it is part of their plan. And right now it seems like they are only targeting the people that are like immigrants, that are people that Americans don't care about, but I'm using finger quotes, by the way. I just want to make sure that listeners know that, because that is, I think, what their stance is they believe that they can just do whatever they want and make people disappear because it's making America safe and great, etc. But it really is just targeting certain people.
Yeah,
I mean, I've brought up a lot of this, like from your experience, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, in my opinion, it is, and I think also by definition, it's fascism, right? It's fascist approach to leadership and to ruling. And fascism, I'm not the first person to say this, it's pretty much always the same, right? It follows the same playbook over and over and over again. And one of the things that fascists do is they fabricate an enemy, right? They fabricate an enemy that then allows them to extend their powers and extend influence, right? So during the drug war, who are the enemies? Oh, the drug sellers and the drug addicts. So you're going to give me more power, and we're going to circumvent the Constitution for the sake of safety. And you're going to, by you, I mean like the collective, right? You're going to allow the administration to do unconstitutional actions, right? You're going to allow them to grab more power and wield that additional power with the idea or the belief that they're doing it for the sake of your safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're ceding your constitutional rights, you're ceding the Constitution, right, for the sake of what you view as safety. And that is always how it happens. That's how it happened, yes, and during the drug war in the Philippines. That's how it happened during the Ferdinand Marcos dictatorship in the Philippines too, right? Mm-hmm. They were saying, hey, the communists are everywhere. We have to fight the communists. And so they escalate, they take extra powers. They are given additional powers by the Congress or by the House of Representatives, or the Senate, to take these actions for the sake of keeping the country safe. And then what do you have next? You have a dictator who's in power for a couple decades. And so it's the same kind of thing, right? The same kind of thing, this scapegoating, this, all of America's problems are because of the illegal immigrants or because of Antifa or whatever, right? And it's the same kind of power grab. You get people to believe that. You get enough people to believe that. They are glad to let you do what you want. And, if you're going to protect them or make the country great again or whatever. And so I think the frustrating thing to me, like it brings it all back, but it's also just like, it's the same every time in every country. And it happens over and over again. Like I saw this tweet the other day that was like, man, it was something along the lines of, I can't phrase it as wittily, but it's something along the lines of, I was so mad when the Star Wars sequels came out and the premise was fascism 20 years later, but stupider.
Right.
And then you watch it, you're like, this is dumb. And then the person was like, well, now I'm living through it and I understand.
Yeah. It's like, it's crazy because it feels like no one has learned a lesson. Like the purpose of learning the history is so that you learn the lesson. So we don't do this again. And that is just so proven not to work. And I don't know how else we're supposed to get people on board with what's happening. But I also think it's just now if you have conversations with people who are like very much on the other side of the ideological fence, it's almost like sometimes it doesn't even feel worth it because we're operating in completely different realities where I'm like, we're not even looking at the world in the same way anymore. And it's so hard and it's like hurtful to see like other Americans who I think were probably better than this behave this way. And I'm like, oh my God, wow. It's crazy. It's crazy. I can't imagine what it's like to see this play out and be like, okay, I guess we didn't learn a thing. Nothing has been learned. It's just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. It's so annoying.
Yeah. That's, I think a lot lot. You guys watch Andor?
No.
I haven't seen the second season yet. I watched the first.
So good. So good. But it delves into all of this as well. And I think, it's great. But Andor, as much as it's fiction, it's like the same kind of thing. And you can have a show, right, like Andor, that is like so clearly about the rise of fascism. And you can get viewers that watch it that think like they're talking about the other side of the political spectrum, right? Like, I'm watching this and I'm the good guy here.
The Boys is like that, where like the far right wing people the whole time didn't realize that whole show was making fun of them. They thought that Homelander, I think, was a good guy. I'm not sure how they get that though. And for like 3 seasons, they were like, oh, wait, what? You're now making fun of the fascists? I mean, the good guys? Like we're supposed to be the heroes here. And it's like, no, you missed the whole point of the last 40 episodes.
Yeah.
So I guess media literacy's dead. That's all it is.
Sorry. I feel like we're just like delving pretty far.
See, this is what happens though on YAOK. We just kind of take on the chaos of like one horse and just follow it for a while. So.
I know. Well, I do want to also talk about Everything We Never Had.
Yeah, we can jump to that one now. I think that's a good way to kind of hop in there.
Yeah.
And I want you to give us like the little synopsis of what it's about. But I love stories that are told through multiple point of views, through multiple timelines. They like give me the goosebumps in a very specific way. They just hit in a really good way. So give us the synopsis. What is this one about?
Yeah. So Everything We Never Had is YA historical fiction. It is about father and son relationships across 4 generations of a Filipino-American family. And so you start out in 1929 in California with a character who has just immigrated to the United States and is working in the fields. From there, we go to 1965, Stockton, California, following his son. We go from there to 1983, Denver, following his son. And then from there, we go to 2020 in Philadelphia, following his son. And so you see each of the characters kind of at these, in their sections, they're the main character. They're about 16 years old. Something is happening in their personal life, as well as something is happening in kind of a larger historical moment. And then you see how that plays out, and you see how that impacts them, and how that impacts the father that they become, or the grandfather that they become in the other sections. And all those timelines are like intertwined. It's not like a straight through chronological kind of multi-generational story. And so you get a little bit of each, kind of dips back and forth between those perspectives.
Like, how much research did you do? Did you, when you like set out to write this book, when you first get the idea, did you kind of have the dates already in mind because of specific events, or did you kind of have to do any research for it?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. So I had some ideas. Like, I knew I wanted to kind of cover kind of different moments in Filipino-American history kind of over the course of 100 years, about span of time. And so I had different events kind of in my head that I already knew about. But I would say I kind of knew like the bullet points or kind of the general ideas of it. And I kind of viewed this as an opportunity again to kind of learn more about each of those moments. And so one of the things that in 1930 that the story touches on is the Watsonville riots. Kind of a period of time where there was a lot of kind of all over the West Coast, there was a lot of anti-Filipino sentiment building up, right? Like, you've seen the no blacks or no colored signs kind of during segregation. There were also in California, no Filipinos signs in a lot of places as well. And so that kind of came to a head in a number of communities across California and the West Coast around 1930. Watsonville was one of them, where it kind of exploded at some point. And there were a few days where pretty much every night there were bands of white men that were just roaming the community and beating up whichever Filipinos they could find, kind of destroying Filipino properties and housing, and ended up killing somebody kind of as a result of that. So that section is kind of anchored in that moment and kind of the days leading up to that moment, or the months leading up to that moment. And so that one I knew about, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. And so it was an opportunity for me to do more research. And I also kind of generally knew about, they're called the Manong generation, that first group of Filipinos that came over to work in the fields. Again, I knew some general stuff about it, but not specific stuff. And so it was a good opportunity for me to learn more about that. I was reading primary sources, secondary sources. I connected with a couple of organizations in Watsonville that compile family histories and oral histories of the laborers at that time period, photographs and all kinds of things. So I was able to go there and talk to them and have access to their archives. And then besides that, just general kind of the same kind of thing with the other moments, right? The 2020 moment focuses on kind of the start of the pandemic. It touches on a little bit like the anti-Asian hate crimes and such. And so that one was probably like the least amount of research because
you lived it.
I lived through it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like fact checking and going back and making sure like my timeline was accurate, because that's set in Philly and I was actually in California already at that point. But I used to live in the Philly area. And so, so that one was a little bit less, but the other one is kind of like the further back, the more research I had to do, particularly because when you're writing fiction, like you have to make things seem believable, right? Which means you have to write about these mundane details that you don't always find in the Wikipedia articles or anything. And so that was the difficult thing, was like even just thinking about, okay, well, what did they eat? Where did they live? What was that housing like, right? What did they do on their days off? Like all these kind of minor questions. Like that was the really difficult part to research. I also, at some point, hired a research assistant to help me because it was just taking so much time to do research that I would send her questions and she would, look up what she could find and source it and everything like that to kind of help me out with that.
Yeah. What was
going through that? Because I'm working on a historical book. I need that too. How did you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I contacted, at the time I was living on Stanford's campus because my wife was doing her PhD. And so I was able to like reach out to a professor at Stanford and be like, hey, do you have any undergrads that would be interested in doing something like this?
Good idea.
And I actually
That's
got
cool.
like a ton of interest.
And
And it was great because it's like Stanford, so they're all like type A, like
Super on it.
Yeah.
What was it like going through archives from the 30s? Did you find anything that was especially interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the interesting things to me is just like you have like the typical papers, right? Like the newspapers of the time, which were white newspapers, right? There were white writers, white editors, across the board. And so you get the reports from that side. But then like the Filipino community is actually like pretty prolific when it comes to writing, right? We often say that we're one of the few countries where our national hero is a writer. Jose Rizal was like national hero of the Philippines, and he was most known for his writing. And so Filipinos tend to talk a lot or write a lot. And so there are a lot of Filipino, like kind of community published writings, where they just talk about what's going on and they're reacting to what's going on. And it's interesting because you don't get that perspective a lot of times, right? You get that white perspective of like, oh, here's the article from the city's newspaper, but you don't get this like fiery, first person op-ed in this Filipino newspaper about what's going on in the community.
Yeah,
so I think it helps people seem like real people and seem alive.
Totally. And it also, I'm sure it feels similar to when you go to school and you're in the US and the entire education that you receive is just like straight up told them from the perspective of white people. And so like you get like this little moment where they're like, and slavery was so bad. Next chapter.
Not even that anymore, right? Not anymore.
Right.
Now slavery wasn't so bad.
Slavery was just normal. It was okay.
Right, exactly. So it's like, but when we were growing up, at least we had at least some level of like, it was bad. But you don't, then you get to be an adult and you're like, holy shit, this is like, oh my God. And obviously like some parts of it are like not appropriate to like tell like a middle schooler necessarily, but like to be able to go back to the actual sources and hear from Filipino people and hear their experience from their perspective, I'm sure like flips a lot of it on its head, where like had you only had the resources of the newspapers and whatever that were written by white folks, it would have been a completely different story. Crazy experience.
For sure.
What was your favorite time period to write?
I don't know. I mean, I think they're like all interesting in different ways. Like I kind of talked about the Watsonville stuff. Like 1965 is kind of leading up to the Delano grape strike. So which most people know of as led by Cesar Chavez, right? It's a big strike that led to the creation of the United Farm Workers Union, but it was actually started by Filipino organizers, and then they eventually brought in the Mexican organizers, and then it led to this several-year boycott. So it's kind of interesting. It was interesting to read about that and kind of what was leading up to those moments. The 1983 one has to do with, I mentioned Ferdinand Marcos, the previous dictator of the Philippines. It has to do with the assassination of Ninoy Aquino, who was kind of the primary opponent to Marcos as Marcos's power was waning. And he was exiled from the country for a long time, spent some time in the United States. And then he went back to the Philippines because he was like, I'm gonna return and I'm gonna fight. And he was assassinated stepping off the airplane.
Wow.
And so it was interesting. I kind of, again, one of those moments where I knew about that moment, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. And so I was researching it. I was watching newscasts of like, of those reports of what happened there, seeing things that I'd never seen before. As part of that, I was also learning more about the Marcos dictatorship. And so that was really interesting too. I mean, like one of the things that's interesting to me is that when Marcos was eventually pushed out of power in 1986 by a theoretically nonviolent revolt. Like people just stormed the palace, right? The government, the presidential home, and like forced him out. The military turned on him. They just like stormed it and took it over. And like he was on an airplane and the airplane like had to leave, go elsewhere.
Guys, how do we do that?
And guess who gave him refuge?
Oh,
The United States and Hawaii.
Garbage.
And so one of the things that was interesting was to read the manifest of what was on the plane when he landed in Hawaii. And it is wild. We're talking like, beyond just like tons and tons of money, like boxes of diamonds, like giant gold statues, like all of these riches that they essentially plundered from the country, right? And then you still get people that deny that the Marcoses did anything wrong, but it's like you look at this list of stuff they took with them, and you're like, how can you say that? Like, this is like a factual thing of all these ridiculous, like literally boxes and boxes of diamonds and jewels, like 3 foot tall gold, like pure gold statues, and like all this kind of stuff. And it's just like,
wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. So it was interesting to read kind of each of these moments, and yeah, and then doing the research in the 2020, like I said, is mostly just like fact checking my own memory.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That was hard too, because it was also like, I knew I wanted to touch on anti-Asian hatred, but I also like didn't want that to be like the focus of that section, because in large part the story is about trying to heal these generational divides or this generational trauma to the extent that we can. And so I didn't go into too much detail over like particular attacks or anything like that. Like there's some mentionings, but I just wanted to keep the focus like away from that too much. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if that was like the right call or not. Like, it's like, maybe I should have delved into that more deeply, but I also, like I said, I wanted the most recent one to be more hopeful and more about the healing than about what was happening in that moment.
I feel like that's like when editors say, or like when writers, editors, whatever, say, kill your darlings, like that might be kind of like in that column where it's like, if you already have a bunch of different timelines where it's like, okay, well, this is the theme for these timelines. It's like the best way to tell a story that is linking all of these timelines together is to like focus on the one theme. And it's like, if that one theme isn't the specifically like the attacks on like Asian people, especially with like COVID, I feel like then you're kind of taking something and not really like doing a disservice, but it's like it deserves more weight than what the book is already giving. Because it's like there's other themes that you're touching on, and that is the main story of this. And it's like that can be something that you can always talk about in a different book where you can actually focus a lot more attention on it and kind of give it the weight it deserves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. And I think also like there, at least for me, and I think maybe like a lot of writers of color, we're thinking a lot about like not writing trauma porn, right? Because a lot of times for writers of color, it's like, write about the most painful thing you experienced or your community has experienced. And I do delve into those moments at points, obviously talking about like drug war and Watsonville riots and stuff. But I also, I don't know, like I want to present something more layered and more nuanced than just like, here's this terrible thing that happened. And I felt like with writing about the 2020 section, it's like, I could have like picked one of those people that were attacked, because many of them were Filipino elders here in California and in other places. That thing again, where racists kind of confused Filipinos for Chinese people. Not that would be okay either, but it happens. And it's like I could have picked one of those, written about it in extreme detail. I could have there's this kind of one of the things that happens in the 2020 timeline is that the main character in that section starts walking with his grandfather. They go on these daily walks, right? Because it was 2020, everything was shutting down. We couldn't do a whole lot at that time. And so I have them going on these daily walks. And I did think of like, oh, well, what if the grandfather gets attacked, right? What if he's like one of these elders that's attacked? And it's completely believable, right? Because that was happening at that time. It was happening to Filipino elders. And then I decided against that because, again, I didn't want this to be about that moment, like that. That particular timeline was about the healing, about the moving forward, and not about just what horrible thing could happen to Filipino people in every single, decade.
Yeah. And I also think that you're not that far out from when it actually happened. So there's you have a higher likelihood of the people who are picking up this book also like knowing what that was like. So it's less like for these other periods of time, there are plenty of people who will pick up these books or pick up this book and read these stories and learn things about Filipino culture, Filipino American culture and the history of it here that they didn't know before. Where like we all were kind of like mostly sentient during 2020.
Yeah.
And we, so like, I think it's almost like you don't need to educate as much about that, where like these other periods of time, you're going to be sharing things that people are going to hear for the first time.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
A message from McAfee. Wondering why the post office is texting you or why you owe thousands of dollars in toll fees? Because someone's trying to scam you. The good news? McAfee can help. With McAfee's award-winning scam detection, it's easy to tell what's real and what's fake over text, in your inbox, and online. If they're
You want a free gift?
Seriously? If they're faking it, they're not making it past us. Get award-winning scam detection today. McAfee.com/keepitreal.
This episode is brought to you by Ulta Beauty. Holiday cheer is here, and Ulta Beauty has gifts for everyone on your list. Treat them to fan-favorite gift sets from Charlotte Tilbury and Peach and Lily. Go all out with timeless fragrances from YSL, Ariana Grande, and Carolina Herrera. And you can never go wrong with an Ulta Beauty gift card. Head to Ulta Beauty for gifts that make the holidays brighter and even more beautiful. Ulta Beauty. Gifting happens here.
When cool, creamy ranch meets tangy, bold buffalo, the whole is greater than the sum of its sauce. Say howdy, partner, to new Buffalo Ranch sauce. Only at McDonald's for a limited time.
At participating McDonald's.
Abercrombie Kids is bringing the cheer all holiday season. And winter break means it's time for new outfits that are both festive and comfy. The last thing they need? New cozy coats for every occasion. Celebrate the season with Abercrombie Kids in the app, online, and in stores.
Are you troubled by trying to find a great movie podcast to listen to?
Do you experience a love for monster movies from the classic Universal era to the modern creature features?
Have you or your family ever watched episodes of Elvira, Monster Vision, or Svengoolie?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Open up your podcatcher and search for the professionals. The Monster Rally Podcast.
Our hilarious and asinine hosts have an ever-growing library of episodes for you to listen to 24 hours a day to serve all your monster movie needs.
We'll talk about it.
I think like with avoiding the trauma and like ending it on a hopeful note is also a good thing, because I feel like the books where it's like, oh, here's this person of color that is just talking about the traumatic ways that people of color in America deal with life. I think that is a very specific book for a very specific white person, because it's always the white person that is supposed to be reading it. Because it's like, I feel like
like an Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah, a black reader doesn't want to read about like the trauma that they already experience on a daily basis. It's like, yeah, what am I going to get from this? It's like, and I think it is very much for telling white people, it's like, oh, here is a perspective that you don't know about or that you aren't paying attention to. And I think that's what the whole movie, American Fiction. So he's like this, he writes these like literary novels, and he's just kind of like a mid-list author, I think. And his agent keeps telling him to write something that is traumatic. And so he just like drunkenly writes this like really stereotypical like black character who grows up on the streets and shoots people over drugs and stuff, and then ends up getting nominated for a major literary award and shit. And it's just about him kind of dealing with the way, especially white publishing, and I think even Yellowface is about that as well, right? So it's like there's several other books that even point out why you shouldn't write like that. But I think that this is a better... I'm always looking for books with hope because, I mean, look at where we are. I don't think that anybody should have to read things that aren't about hope. I don't know, because it's like sometimes I do want a book that's like, oh yeah, this is dark and grimy, but I don't think the themes, like I really don't think that there are certain themes that should be in those books anymore. I feel like those books, if you want something dark, it should kind of be fun dark. I don't know. It's just me. It's like there can be darkness, but I still want, if you are touching on genuine human emotion and flaws, I do want a little bit of hope where it's like, look, the world is shit. It has been. Look at all of the history and look how it still is today. But here are the good things that still come out of this and how you can kind of come to terms with that.
I think that like undergirds YA in general, right? Yeah. Like I think I've talked about this on panels and other stuff before with other people, like this idea that like a YA book doesn't need to have a happy ending, right? Necessarily. Obviously there are a lot that do have happy endings. There are some that don't. But one of the primary things between, I think, YA and adult literature is that it's not as bleak, that there's always like, there should be a glimmer of hope that things could get better. And I remember being on a panel once talking about this with a few other authors, and one of the authors was pretty bleak. and they were like, well, does it always need that? Like, I don't think they're like, are we just lying to them? Because there's not always hope. And I don't know. I think like fundamentally, I think a hopeful person. And I think even now in this moment, right, I'm hopeful that there will be positive change. I think things are going to get worse before they get better. I don't know when things will get better, but I fundamentally believe, kind of like you were saying, like, yeah, we look at the past, we look at the present, but there is always a way forward, right? There's always the possibility. And that's, I think, one of the beautiful things about life in general. And not to mention, like, I feel like every generation is like, this is the worst period of time ever. The world is going to blow up, right? So I don't think that's necessarily a new sentiment. And so I think like that's important for me in my stories, like not that they have a happy ending, but that there is a sense of hope that things can get better, or things might get better eventually, not on their own, right? Not just magically because we want them to, but because people are actively working on doing things, right? One of the characters in Everything We Never Had are actively working on making themselves better, right? Making themselves, repairing their relationships. If they didn't do that, things wouldn't get better, right? But there's this idea that it's possible to improve through self-reflection, through communal reflection and adjustment, right? Adjusting the course.
Yeah. Was writing those stories, did it give a different perspective on your family coming to the US? Because my family, like my grandparents are the first generation who came here. They came here when they were young, and my parents on both sides were born here, but all four of their parents were immigrated here. And so when every now and again, I would like have conversations with my grandmother, and she would just say like, you forget what, like, she's like, yep. And for a treat, we would have one egg cracked and we would dip bread into it. And that was a treat. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it's like you forget, it feels so far away, but it was not that long ago, and they risked everything to be here. So I feel like digging back into all of those stories would give me a different appreciation for like what that experience is like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different in my case because I'm 1.5 Gen. I don't know. I was born in the Philippines, but I grew up in the United States.
Yeah.
My mom is a white American. My dad was naturalized citizen later in life as an adult. And so I'm like a little bit in both places. And I think like the interesting thing for me was, my dad was very much part of the generation of assimilation, right? Of like when we first moved here, my brother didn't speak English well enough and had to repeat a grade. And I think that kind of hurt my parents. And so they kind of stopped speaking to us in Tagalog and Filipino because they're like, we don't want the rest of you to go through that. We don't want you to grow up with an accent, right? They're this kind of understanding that if you speak English and you speak it like a Midwesterner or wherever, that you'll have access to success in a way that you wouldn't otherwise have. And so very much part of that, like, fit in, the past is the past. Like you're an American now. You're fully American. And so I think it gave me just kind of more sympathy for that. I think when I was a kid, I didn't really understand what that was. When I learned to name it, I was kind of resentful, and I was like, why did you feel like you had to assimilate? Why didn't you teach me Tagalog when I was growing up? Like, why did you stop? Right? Like, why didn't you teach me more about Philippine history and all this kind of stuff? And then, I think getting older, writing this book, it's kind of like, okay, like you were trying to survive. Like we all kind of do what we do because we think it's going to help us survive in some way or another, right? Like almost every, I believe that there's this core facet of who we are as individuals, but I think like we experience these traumas or we experience different events and different parts of our personality begin to take shape as a result of that, all for the sake of survival, right? For the sake of protecting ourselves, kind of within, yes, the historical context, but also within the familial context at a smaller level within our society. Like we are shaped by this idea of trying to survive. And so I think it made me more sympathetic towards that, kind of getting in the heads of some of my characters who were very similar in that regard. But I also kind of at the end of the day, think that means we all like that's not an excuse to stay like that forever, right? Once you're able to identify like, oh, this, whatever it is, say you have like an anger problem. All right, well, my anger problem is a result of me trying to survive in a household where I couldn't defend myself, right? And I had to speak up for myself. It's like, okay, great. That doesn't mean you can continue to have an anger problem, right? Once you identify that, you
take responsibility and you change.
You take responsibility, and you try to heal. And so I think like that kind of came out of my writing of this book, rather than just kind of being that, my younger self being like, why weren't you essentially a more woke Filipino immigrant?
I get that though, because my dad's parents were very like into the you are American, you're assimilating. Like my dad grew up with parents who moved here when they were young adults, but like when he makes like food from his childhood, he makes like toast with American cheese on it, like very American, very American. And my mom, whose name is Carmelina, and was like her parents would my nonno, my grandpa, would make dried sausage and hang it in the garage. So like we were living in the Bronx and like he would during like nice days, he would open the garage door and there'd just be like dried meat hanging from the fucking, so they were one side really like excuse me, they really stayed as rooted as they could, like kept traditions as much as they could. And the other side was very like craft on toast and you are American. And like, so I feel that similar thing where I was like, I didn't learn how to speak Italian. And now most of my grandparents are gone. And now I'm like, well, fuck, why didn't you guys teach me? I would have loved to learn. And like, it stinks to lose that. But you also, like you said, at some point you learn the empathy for what they were trying to do, which was survive and create a life that was better than the one that they had, or the perception of the one that they had, whatever it is for every specific case. But yeah, I totally relate to that. So interesting.
We also had Abigail Hing Wen on last week. She wrote Love Boat Taipei, and
she lives pretty close to me.
Really? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's right. She's actually in California as well. I totally forgot about that. But so Love Boat Taipei was basically, kind of came from that idea of like assimilation, because she went back to Taiwan for this program where it's teaching kids who have moved to other countries about their heritage and culture in Taiwan. And I brought up the fact that is such like, It may just be because that's where where I've noticed the theme of like this, where the Asian diaspora, like a lot of stories, especially in YA, are about teens who either were part of that like assimilation idea, or like they just wanted to fit in school, and so they were trying to be like as American as possible, even though they're like immigrants or their parents were immigrants. And I just think I'm wondering if there's multiple stories. I mean, there are multiple stories, but I'm wondering like how many are out there where it is just this idea of assimilation, where it's like, okay, I want to fit into this American idea, and how many of the kids in the future kind of look back on it and are like, oh, I wish I had a little bit. Because like, look at me, I'm bald and white, so it's like I'm Irish and Swedish, and I like my Irish heritage. I'm like always fascinated by, because for some reason the Irish were very different than the rest of the United Kingdom. But then like all of the Swedish, I don't want to learn about Irish or I don't want to learn about like English and Swedish food. But I think it's because what I know of English food isn't great to begin with. And I have tried, I've gone, and I haven't gone to Sweden yet, but I've gone to, Irish food it's very similar, but it's a little more cozy. But when I was at the UK, I've had English food and it is not great. So, but like, it's just this idea of like, I kind of would love to know just all of these. I want to read something that maybe even like an anthology or something of just like a melting pot of all these different cultures that have come to America and the way they tried to assimilate, and then like getting back in touch with that. It seems like something that's impossible to do, because I feel like every single story needs a big book to read. Not big, because even this one's like, I think 288 pages, it said. It's a pretty short one.
This one's super short, but
like, I think it needs its own book. It can't be a story. So maybe somebody should just make a Goodreads list of like all of the different melting pot cultures of people who have come here, and the ways they've either embraced or kind of not turned on their culture, but like tried to ignore, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a really good book on kind of immigration history and stuff from, I think, Ronald Takaki. It's called A Different Mirror, that I would recommend. But, I think it's like a common immigrant experience is the desire to assimilate, or feel like you have to assimilate to fit in and succeed. I think there's something that's particular kind of to each immigrant group. And I think something that's very particular to Asian immigrants is that this idea of the perpetual stranger, right? That there were others that came before us that have been here for a really long time that tried to assimilate, and by all quantifiable metrics succeeded, economically, but will forever be viewed as the other simply because they're not white or they don't look white, right? Like, as you're talking about like Irish immigrants and stuff, like, of course, Irish immigrants were horribly discriminated against. Italian immigrants were horribly discriminated against. But kind of at the end of the day, they were able to kind of assimilate into that whiteness, right? And take on whiteness because of that shared Western European ancestry in a way that Asians can't, right? Like, if you think about, like the Japanese American community, who a lot of them came in the 1800s or late 1800s and were here for a couple generations even. Some were citizens, right? And then 1940s roll around and World War II, and then suddenly we're going to ship all of them off into the incarceration camps, whether they're citizens or not, just because of their Japanese ancestry, right? Whether they speak Japanese or not, whether they have an accent or not, right? And so I think there is, for a lot of us Asian Americans, we grow up with that history, and we're learning about that history and knowing, that there's not assimilation for us. Like there are these promises of assimilation that will never be granted. And like those anti-Asian hate attacks, like reinforce that idea, right? Yeah. That a lot of those people that were attacked were American citizens that have been here for their entire lives or decades, but it's just because people saw them on the street and something clicked on, oh, you look Chinese or you look Asian, and then they're going to take this hatred that's been fostered by at the time, Trump and others, and take it out on them. And so I think there's, particularly within the Asian American community, this idea that this awareness that the promises of assimilation are false and that it's impossible.
Yeah. Even like you see it now with the ICE raids now, where like Eric and I have the benefit of being like white European people. And so even with our stories of our family backgrounds and whatever, that when the ICE raids are happening, like they're not going to stop us. And like, that's like, I can't even, that privilege is insane. Like, and they're just stopping people based on how they look, based on how tan they are and how that person feels that day. And they don't care if you are a citizen or not. And, it's just a fucking nightmare.
Which I mean was illegal up until a month ago when the Supreme Court decided, you can basically profile again. We don't care.
Psychotic.
Cool.
Psychotic.
Great times.
I know. But there is some level of hope in that people are, I think, more aware and more involved than they ever have been. Like people who have, always been, I'm not into politics. People understand the difference is like, this is not about a tax code. I mean, it is in some cases, obviously, but that's not what we're talking about day to day. We're talking about the safety and well-being of your fellow neighbors and your friends and your, this is so different. And so I'm hoping that, sharing stories like you do and having people continue to stay involved and find activism in their own way helps people just be involved enough that they show up to the voting polls and continue to have peaceful protests and like really real activism beyond posting things.
Yeah. Very well said.
Hope. That's what we're looking for, is hope. Jeez.
Should we ask? We always talk about how, or at least we just talked about how we like to have at least a little hope. So I think we can kind of, before we let you go, we'll kind of end on some hopeful stuff, because we'll talk about a little bit of the writing process, which is always, I think, hopeful. We ask a lot if people are plotters or pantsers, and we've recently adjusted it. I don't know how long I have to keep telling this story that we have recently adjusted it, because I've probably told it for the past 5 episodes. I feel like people listening are going to get annoyed. But Kat Cho, I was doing an event, and Kat Cho said that she likes the gardener or architect better, because it's like a gardener plants seeds and they just kind of see what grows, but the architect has a blueprint for what their book is going to be. I like that better. I think it sounds a little bit more what everybody's writing process is either way. So which would you say you are, as an architect or a gardener?
Yeah. And first, I would say I support this change to the common language around this, because when I speak to kids, I talk about pantsing. They're like, "What is that?" No, you don't know that expression anymore. You're like, "Oh, fly by the seat of your pants." They're like, "I've never heard that before in my life." But yeah, gardener, architect. It depends on what I'm writing. Patron Saints of Nothing, Everything We Never Had was definitely more towards the gardener side. I had general ideas of where I was going in the story, kind of what I wanted to hit on, but I didn't outline things in great detail. I kind of trust myself, trust the story, to trust the characters to, as I write, I get to know them better. As I get to know them better, I understand better how they're going to react in different situations. And so that's most of the time. But I also write Avatar, The Last Airbender books for part of their series, Chronicles of the Avatar. And that one, I have to be an architect because it's part of this larger ecosystem of stories, right? And so I have to step by step kind of get feedback from them. I give them a story concept, they give me feedback. I give them an outline based on their feedback, they give me feedback. I might adjust that outline, right? I give them a draft, they give me feedback, I adjust that. And so that one, I very much have to be an architect, and I've kind of learned to do that. The first time I did it was pretty hard. And I still can't. I still end up changing some things along the way. I can't stick exactly to to what I outlined because like I said earlier, I'm very much like driven by the characters in my story, and so it's hard for me to outline because I don't feel like I know the characters well enough. And so I have to spend a lot of time getting to know them. And the more I write, the more I understand who they are and what's motivating them, which is sometimes different from what I think when I start out to write the book. And so, yeah, so those ones are definitely more, they're more commercial. So they're more outline based. But even within that, I usually have a little wiggle room where I'm changing some things along the way.
You have a new one of those coming out in December. Is that right?
Yeah, December 30th, The Awakening of Roku, which is the second book of the Roku duology. Because if people are unfamiliar with this, it's called the Chronicles of the Avatar series, where they delve into some of the past avatars. And it's a young adult series, so it's always kind of when they're teenagers at some point or another. And there's 2 books for each avatar. And so FCE wrote the first 4 books. The first 2 were on Kyoshi, and then the second 2 were on Yang Chen. And then I'm writing Roku's, so this is the second Roku book. And so it's a continuous series, but you don't have to read like all of them to make sense of the Roku ones. Like reading the first Roku book will definitely help you make sense of the second Roku book, but you don't have to read like all of the Kyoshi and Yang Chen ones to make sense of the Roku book.
Were you always a fan of Avatar even before you started working on their IP?
Yeah, so I was not growing up. Like I think it came out when I was in college. No, when I finished college, it came out, and so I was teaching at the time, and so I didn't watch it. But then I think like for years, people who knew me and knew me well were like, "I think you would really like this show," and I was just kind of like, "Yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it someday." And then I got to it in 2020. Pandemic hit.
Good timing.
It dropped on Netflix for the first time, and so I was like, all right, let me give this a shot. And I was hooked right away. I loved it. Back when Twitter wasn't complete garbage. I was doing one of those really long Twitter threads where I was like doing my reaction and analysis to like every single episode along the way. And so and then I was writing and all that, and then at some point they needed a new author for the series. And they knew I was a fan because somebody was aware of like that giant thread that I did when I watched Avatar. And so they approached me about it. So that was pretty cool to kind of be like, oh, okay, there's not many things I would write IP for, because I kind of like my own freedom and like being able to do what I want to do. But this was probably like one of 2 or 3 properties that I would have wanted to write for.
Yeah, that's really exciting when you find something you're like, "Ooh, I would love to write in this world." Like, and just to be able to explore like either characters you like or like even just the world and like find this different way to kind of bring your own story into this story that you love, this universe that you love.
It's also just like a lot of fun. We were talking about Patron Saints of Nothing and Everything We Never Had, which are like pretty deep and like takes a lot out of me to write a story like that. And
I know it's like I wanted to touch on the Avatar stuff because it's exciting, but like our conversation was so interesting that I was like, oh no, let's stick on this for a little bit. So,
and like I think if you read the Roku books, you'll see some of the stuff we've been talking about in there, but it's not like the primary thing, right? Like when I sit down to write an Avatar book, my primary goal is to write a fun, adventurous story that has the same kind of vibe, as the original series. And so I am delving into deeper things, but it's not like, it's not literary. It's not like, oh, I have all this pressure to say these really deep things or explore these really deep things. It's like I'm touching on those, but I want it ultimately to be a fun story for fans to read.
That's the power of genre fiction, because you can do that. You can have this like fantastic world and also still talk about the daily stuff that is, and it's easier to have hope in a like world like that where it's like, okay, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, and then they fight. This is how that ends. Perfect. Yeah, it's like great. It doesn't have to be messy and love it.
And I'm a fan of all genres and everything. So so we need those stories too, right? I think we need we need complicated, morally gray stories, and we need just kind of fun stories that kind of cozy endings, right? Like it's
take the edge off.
I wanted to ask if you're allowed to talk about anything that you're writing first before we get into what you're reading.
You mean
you
outside
don't have to
of Avatar?
share it if you're like, it can be, I don't know, if you're writing any more in those that you can announce, yeah, but but also like just if you're writing stuff for yourself, or if you have things under contract, if you have something that's coming out soon that just hasn't been announced or will be before November, Matt, tell us if we're going to be in, I think it's November is when this is going to come out, but.
Yeah, so the Avatar book comes out December 30th, and it is set 3 years after the first book, and Roku is about 19 years old. He's finished his airbending training, and he's headed north to start his waterbending training. But along the way, he discovers this mysterious illness that is spreading across the north, and he decides to try to stop and help before it spreads through the north and beyond. In the spring, I have a picture book coming out called Hold, illustrated by Zeke Pena. And then next summer, I have the first book in a YA paranormal horror duology coming out.
Ooh.
It is called Nest of Tongues.
That's a great title.
Yeah, it is about a brother and sister who are this Filipino creature called manananggal, essentially it splits in half, like the torso has wings and can fly off, and then it's kind of like a vampire. So that's what they are, but during the day they appear to be just regular humans, and they are kind of living their life, dealing with all of that. And then this like legendary Filipino monster hunter comes to town, and suddenly they're being tracked down. And so they're trying to survive. So it's kind of like I tell people, like, imagine Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Filipino folklore and mythology, but Buffy is the bad guy, right? So
wow.
Brother and sister are trying to...
spoke Eric's language. He loves Buffy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one. That sounds
awesome.
great.
Yeah, and so I'm physically, like, literally on my other screen, I'm working on the sequel to that one right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great. Okay, so our very last question is, what are you reading now, Randy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I always love that question. I'm always reading multiple things. I just finished The Corruption of Hollis Brown, which is fantastic.
I love that. We had Kayla on
a little while ago.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah.
So that was great.
Did you love it?
I loved it. And it's so weird. I love weird books. That,
Yeah.
And it's beautifully written too. That's kind of like my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading
Kayla
a nonfiction book about
just
bats.
won the Lambda Literary Award for Icarus
really?
this past weekend. So
cool.
Congrats, Kayla.
Congratulations to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And I'm reading a nonfiction book about bats right now called The Genius Bat.
Okay. Love it.
And I always try to read some poetry, try to start off my day with like a poem. And so
nice.
I'm making my way through the Tao Te Ching. I'm counting that as poetry right now. And so
nice. Love that.
It's very balanced.
Then I'm reading another YA book that comes out, I think, next year that I'm reading with the idea of potentially blurbing it. Yeah. So I can't say anything about that one.
Yeah. We'll just have to be surped when we see you tag
my blurb appear,
author's thing.
And you'll be like, wow, I was talking to him when he was reading that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's cool. That's a very balanced reading list that you have going right now.
Yeah, like I said, I read all over the place. I don't know. My interests have always been all over the place, reading. Yeah. I think when I was a kid, even read horror, fantasy, realistic, everything.
That's what mine is. I'm always all over.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? I need you to get back to writing your sequel to your horror because that already sounds like something that I need to read ASAP. So we will let you go do that. But this was great talking with you. We can't wait to have you on next summer to talk about Nest of Tongues because
sounds awesome.
Wait. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, great conversation. Thank you for having me on.
When she asked me how far we can take it, I tell her we can take it across the entire universe. You are my universe, not just a planet.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of YAOK. Eric, we talked about what we were reading earlier today, so it's not that interesting. But we are getting very close to Thanksgiving. So is there anything that you are especially thankful for this year?
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. This is a great prompt, just because we were talking about and like having hope. And you know what? We could be thankful and hopeful. Obviously, you know what? I'm not going to go with what the obvious is, because that's kind of like, yeah, everybody's, if you're healthy, you of course are happy for that. And you're thankful for it.
Sure.
I'm going to be, I got some fun publishing news that I will tell you, because by the time this comes out, I will have already made a little Instagram post all about it. Last Friday, my new book, Better the Devil, which comes out in January, got a starred review from Kirkus. Which,
Yay!
do you remember how stars work in book reviews?
We talked about this a very long time ago, like very early.
Who knows if our listeners know? So reviews in like the bigger ones, like Kirkus, I think is the most famous of them. You get a review and they either hate your book, they like your book, or they love your book. And if they love your book, they'll give it a star. And I got the star review from Kirkus, and then this morning I found out that it also got a good review from Publishers Weekly. And the reason I am thankful for both of those is because of the way it was written.
Mm-hmm.
The reviews, I don't know how to describe it without sounding kind of like a douche, but like, I don't know, like when I write a book, I do a lot of editing, and when I sit down, I have an idea in my head, and it's like, this is the theme, this is the story that I'm trying to tell. By the time it gets published, I am always nervous about whether or not my edits have helped or hurt, because it's like when you're working on stuff, it's hard to figure out if you're actually making it better, or if you just keep kind of making it worse. And all of the reviews pointed out exactly what I was going for in the book, and I feel so fucking proud of it.
Yay!
So that is what I am thankful for.
Oh, that's so awesome. That is so awesome. I'm so happy for you. It's such a good book. I'm so excited for people to be able to read it.
I'm really
it's so
proud.
good.
It just made me like, I've been like loving all of the feedback from readers and like Goodreads, but I think it just like, I don't pay that much attention to the what's it called? These are like trade reviews. That's what they're called. So it's just publishing reviews, because it's like, these are people who are paid to read for a living, and then they write these reviews. So it's like, if I get a bad one, it kind of makes me feel like shit. So I don't want to read it. And then it's when you get a good one and they point out these very specific choices you make, it just makes it's like, oh, okay, I actually do know what I'm doing sometimes. Yeah. And obviously it's partly because of my editor and everything, but it's still like, I did it, and I'm happy. I'm
killer
proud.
Story, pun intended.
It makes me feel proud. So
yeah. Oh, I'm so happy for you. Yay. Okay. And when this comes out, we will be even closer to when it comes out. So
yeah,
January
maybe that'll convince people to pre-order it now.
January 2026. It's so good. You guys are going to love it. I am thankful for, oh boy, I'm trying to not use the basic ones too. You know what I'm actually very thankful for?
No, tell me.
Is I recently had an experience with this is going to sound really fucking weird. I had an experience with my psychiatrist recently.
Ooh.
And if you've ever had a psychiatrist.
This is good, because we talked about my psychiatrist earlier. Oh, well, that was in the Christopher Pike one, but yeah. You know what? Perfect.
Yeah. So if you've had a psychiatrist before, you know that the appointments are usually very fast. Like, you have your initial diagnosis appointment, and like that's a little longer, but then after that, when they like are checking in, it's
15 minutes.
Yeah, like 15 minutes if you're lucky. And so I had this appointment with her, and I basically was like, I'm feeling some of the physical symptoms that I had that put me on the medication that I'm on now. So I'm like, I'm a little worried that it's like maybe not working, or maybe I need to change my dose or whatever. And she was like, well, what's happened? And like, since the last time I spoke to her. And since I spoke to her last, there's been like a bunch of just like the biggest thing is I had a family member pass away. We were facilitating end of life care out of my house. And so like my whole summer was end of life care for a family member, which is like, you know, a privilege in some ways to be able to do that at home and whatever, but it was like a lot. And so she was just like, Alyssa, that didn't happen that long ago. And I think that you need to just like give yourself some more grace and like do all of the things that make you feel healthy. Like take all of your vitamins, go on a walk, like try all of those things. And then when we talk again next time, if you think something needs to change, obviously we'll change it. But she's like, you need to chill out. Like, did you really think you were going to go back to normal life after that? And I was like, I guess not. So anyway, I'm really grateful for mental health professionals who are really, truly looking out for the best of their patients. And that was like a really impactful experience for me because usually psychiatrists are very fast. And she really like sat with me and was like, this girl, what are you talking about? You need to give yourself a second. So it was nice to get a reality check from her. And so I'm really grateful for access to her. So for as long as I have it, who knows? 2026 is going to be a roller coaster. And I'm grateful to also have a job that allows me to like control enough of my life and my schedule so I can be like take a little bit of time. That's really wonderful. I'm very grateful for that in this moment. I hope that everyone is having a wonderful start to their holiday season. It's kind of crazy because we have no idea what's going to be happening in November when this comes out. Like, God, I hope we're all still here.
Are we going to have to do like little caveat episodes where it's like 15 minutes? We're like, here's what we missed in between recording episodes.
God, I hope not. I hope everything is so chill and so normal between now and then.
That's great. Oh my God, watch it. Everyone will be listening and be like, why are they thankful for such ridiculous things? I'm thankful we didn't get all nuked in that near nuclear war that we had back in October.
Oh God, I know. Oh, God, I really hope not. I'm knocking on wood if anyone could hear that. Yeah, I hope that everyone's having a wonderful start to their holiday season and that there is no crazy...
Sorry, it's supposed to be hopeful.
Yeah.
And that's how we do hope here at YAOK.
Yeah. That's honestly, that's the best we got. If we're being
giving you hope. Let us know at Instagram, YAOK Podcast.
And we will catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening, guys.
Is it just us, or is commerce getting weird? Tune in to Keeping Commerce Weird, a podcast by Commerce, where bold ideas, wild brand stories, and innovative minds shape the future of the industry. Listen now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Every story in the Bible whispers his name. The Jesus Storybook Bible connects the dots for your children, revealing Jesus in every tale. Join 6 million families who've discovered this beautiful way to share God's great love story. Trusted and treasured for over a decade, listen to the Jesus Storybook Bible today.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.